So, Dustin, we'll give you a chance to introduce yourself to everybody and kind of where you've been before you got here in Macon.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dustin Perillat. I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, up in Canada. I originally came from Watertown, New York, where I started the season down in the FPHL. And I got called up in, I think, late November, early December, and I've been here ever since.
So that's awesome. So before you went to Watertown, though, you've played in a couple different places. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so last year I guess I would have been playing some senior hockey up in Saskatchewan for the last 6 years, I think. And before that I would have been playing major junior hockey in Saskatchewan with the Moose Jaw Warriors, where I started when I was 17. My first year would have been. And then traded home to my hometown team, the Saskatoon Blades, where I'd finished my major junior career in 2018 there.
Yeah, so not many people get the opportunity to go play major junior. What was that like for you? And kind of describe how that system works for maybe people who don't know.
Yeah, so there's definitely a WHL Bantam draft, just like there is in the OHL and the QMJHL. You get drafted at a young age of, I think, if I can remember, 15. You might probably 14 when you get drafted, and you're a young kid. You're being in grade 9, I think, that at that age, and obviously there's scouts and stuff, and it was a very gratifying experience I went through, and it took a lot of hard work to get to that point and go through all of that. Those 2 years I played there, and I'll never forget that, those 2 years I played there.
That's cool. So then you said that you went back to your hometown team. What was that like, playing for the Saskatoon Blades?
Oh, it couldn't have worked out any better. When I was in Moose Jaw, going back for my second year with them, I had went through an injury. I had taken a slap shot to the face, broke my jaw in half, and that's where I got the scar from that I have today. And I went through that recovery of 2.5 months, and the trade deadline came around, and I was having a tough time with that injury. And I got called into the office there in Moose Jaw, and they said, "Yeah, we're trading you home to your hometown team, the Blades." And honestly, I had the biggest smile on my face, and obviously, I was grateful for the opportunity Moose Jaw gave me, but man, I still remember that day going home, packing my bags to go live with my family and play hockey in front of them every day.
That's really cool. So then you said you played senior hockey. How does that differ from major junior, or even the FPHL or other leagues that people have played in before coming to the SPHL?
Oh, it was totally different. I mean, you just play a couple of games on the weekend, if that, and it's only a few months long. So it's nothing like it is here, or the FPHL or the major junior leagues I played in. It was more so just for recreational hockey on the weekends, more so to stay in shape and play with all my buddies.
So how would you say that that kind of helped you stay fresh before going to the FPHL with Watertown, would you say?
Yeah, well, last year, obviously, when I retired from major junior in 2018, I played senior hockey for those 6 years, and last year is when I kind of started taking it more serious, skating more every day, I guess, throughout the summer. And then one day I called one of my buddies, Chewit and Blacksmith, where he lives in Ontario, where I also know there's a senior league there, and I asked him what his plans were to play. And I thought he was going to say senior hockey somewhere there. He said he played in Watertown, New York. And I said, "Oh, what is that?" And he's like, "It's in the FPHL." And I said, "Man, that's pretty cool. Like, I didn't know you played minor pro in the FPHL." And he's like, "Would you like for me to talk to the coach for you?" And I said, "Sure." Sure enough, 2 days later, the coach called me, and then I think 2 weeks later, I was on a flight to Watertown, New York. So it all happened very quick.
That's cool. So then, going from Watertown, you make your way to the SPHL from there this year with Macon and with Dave. How did that process go?
Yeah, so I was playing, obviously, in Watertown for a little over 2 months, and I was starting to take it. Or when I showed up to Watertown, obviously, I was I had to be locked in right away, working out twice a day, trying to catch up to everybody else because I didn't expect to be playing minor professional hockey, and it all happened within a few weeks. So, I had to smarten up right away, I guess you could say, and come into camp and immediately go to work. And then when Dave called me, I couldn't be more excited that he did, because he called my friend Kyle Heitzner, who was here with us earlier last year, and to drive down with him was pretty cool too, because obviously I'd never really been to the United States before until this year, so driving down through all the states, and it was pretty cool to do with Kyle, and then come down here to Macon, and also never living in a warm climate like this.
Yeah, it was very different from Saskatchewan.
It was a bit of an eye-opening experience to see green grass in early December. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. So what would you say your biggest adjustment that you've had to make coming to the SPHL and even the FPHL from the level of hockey that you were playing before has been?
It was definitely the speed, and obviously for sure the speed, and then getting rid of the bad habits that I picked up playing senior hockey, because it's just totally different. Obviously, I mean, it's organized, and everybody's competing at a high level, so getting used to the speed of the game and using my hockey IQ that like I had used to before back in 2018, bringing that back has been kind of tough too for me.
You probably didn't have to be as locked in every shift playing senior hockey, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting used to that and getting rid of the bad habits has been a learning curve for me this year.
That's cool. So what would you say, you played that first game in the SPHL. I'll even ask the same question about your time in Watertown. Did you have any nervousness getting into professional hockey for the first time this season?
Not so much when I got to the FPHL, but definitely when I got called up to here in Macon and playing my first game in Pensacola. I was let known by the team, a couple of the guys obviously this team right here, that Pensacola usually has a good crowd and their rink's fairly big. So obviously I was mentally trying to get ready for that, and not let my emotions get the best of me, and just remember Coach Dave called me for a reason. So just use my skills that I have now, and not shy away or nothing. But yeah, there was no nervousness, but I do remember being very excited, and then obviously when you get to the rink and you see that jersey hanging in your stall, I remember taking a look at the crest, and I was like, wow, like this is pretty surreal.
That's cool. What would you say your mindset going into that first set of games was? From how different is it from your normal mentality, and then how has that changed as the season's gone along?
I just remember, confidence is key at all times at any league, really. I mean, confidence plays a big part in how you play, and then playing my first couple games here, I remember just bearing down on everything, and not being scared to make mistakes on the ice, because mistakes are going to happen. But as long as you're playing the right way and playing hard, the rest of the game should come.
That's cool. So you came here, and you mentioned you got the call in December. You've been here the rest of the time since, and we're getting towards the end of the season. How would you say that your game has changed as the season's gone along?
My game has changed definitely. Getting used to the systems the coaches have laid out for us, and it all comes back to getting used to being in a team, like an organized.
It's not just guys that you're hanging out with on the weekends anymore.
Yeah, like I see my teammates every day, for most of the part of the day, right? Obviously, I live with two of the guys on the team, so getting used to that, and then. Yeah, I mean, my game, try to get back to my game, what I used to play in 2018 when I played at a high level, obviously, in that year. Trying to get back to that, and if not even better, being a professional now.
Couldn't have put it better myself. So one thing about this season is you've played with a couple different guys on the back end as the pairs have changed and the rosters moved a little bit. Does it matter who you're playing with, and how would you say that your skill set helps you be able to play with whoever you're thrown out there with?
I guess that in a way it does matter who you play with, but and then again it doesn't, because you should be able to be a versatile player to be able to, where a coach could lock you into any position, you'd be able to play very well in that spot. So and then I always remember being able to play the right shot, right position on the back end. So I'm a left defenseman, left shot defenseman, but I'm used to playing right side too. So I feel like I don't have any issue playing with any of the other defensemen on the team.
How would you say that it's different as a left shot playing on the right side compared to somebody who might be a right shot?
Definitely receiving a pass for sure is what you got to be able to get used to or be good at for sure. Sometimes you got to catch that pass and your feet are on your backhand most of the time. So, and then I guess it just comes back to you can't give a good player a bad pass. So when you're playing on your off wing, your alpha side, that comes into play for sure.
That's interesting. So the season's coming to a close. Only 4 games left. How much scoreboard watching are you guys doing at this point in the season, or is it just taking care of what you can take care of?
At this point right now, we're just focused on winning that next game Friday in Roanoke. But yeah, definitely when it comes down to the wire like this and you're getting this close to playoffs and the points race are very close, I'm sure everybody in the room watches the standings.
So what would you say has been your favorite moments of the season so far? You mentioned the road trip down, but once you've gotten into Macon, what would you say have been your favorite parts?
My favorite part, or are you talking about just in general?
In general, anything.
Definitely Boyko's goalie goal. I remember being on the ice for that, and as soon as the puck went back to him and he went left the net, I knew he was going to try. So I wasn't surprised he shot the puck. And then when I was standing behind the line of the puck and I seen it going in, I just smiled, and sure enough, the crowd. I remember that building that night. It was incredibly loud for that goal, and it was pretty cool to see it made the Sports Center.
That's not something that many people ever get to see with their own eyes, at the very least on TV or anything like that. So I'm sure being on the ice for it was an even more added experience.
Yeah, well, I've never seen a goal in person until that night. So for Michael to do that in his first game back after injury, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we'll open the floor now. If anybody has any questions for Dustin, we'll give you guys the opportunity to ask him out now. But that'll do it that's all I had for Dustin. Anybody here have anything? Got one on the side?
What's been your favorite jersey to wear so far this season?
I'll say it again for the recording. He said, what has been your favorite jersey to wear so far this season?
Honestly, I didn't mind the Elvis jerseys. I thought the design was pretty nice, but I would say that Elvis. I actually didn't mind them.
That's cool.
Nice design.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Either one.
So you carry the puck really well into the offensive zone and gain access, but as the season's progressed, you've gotten more feisty. And this last weekend, you were ready to drop the gloves. Is that something you were asked to do, or is that something you developed on? How did that?
So he asked, just for the recording, he asked, you've gotten more feisty as the season's gone along. Was that something you were asked to do, or just something you've taken upon yourself?
I think it's more so something I've learned that has to be done being a professional in a league. A professional league, it's all part of the game of hockey, and being my first full year back playing, it was something that I wasn't familiar with when I first got here was being feisty like that, and having to drop the gloves, because I think I've only ever dropped the gloves once in my life prior to this year back in major junior hockey. So it's something that it was a bit of a learning curve for me, but that's all I'll say to that.
You guys in the SPHL only played with one ref. Any thoughts thoughts on whether or not the SPHL might adopt a 2-ref model?
Yes, the difference between a 1 referee and a 2 referee model.
The SPHL having 1 ref, I think it definitely does affect the game at times. I've seen it firsthand playing here, and I've played in obviously other leagues with 2 refs, and it definitely makes a difference. Even with the goal reviews too, it can make or break a goal that goes in or doesn't, or a call that needs to happen, right?
Anybody else? He said, what was your least favorite jersey to wear this year?
Maybe the Superman one. I wasn't a fan of that one. Another favorite one I had was the Mowgli one, the River Monster. It's actually, now that I think back, that was a nice design.
Anybody else got anything?
So we've heard a lot of players talk about the speed and the adjustment to the speed. How do you adjust to that? Is it coaching? Like, do Dave and Phil come and grab you and be like, you're playing up this way, but when you play, how do you adjust to the speed in this league?
So he asked, what exactly does adjusting to the speed of the game entail?
Yeah, definitely when the coaches set out a game plan for you and they got systems for you, that definitely gives you a guideline on what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, it's you making those decisions out there, and maybe having the confidence to make those decisions at a higher or faster pace, right? Executing faster, I guess. But yeah, the speed of the game when I first got here was a bit of adjustment, and that just also comes with your own conditioning too, and getting the reps in at practice. So practicing the right way and executing in practice also helps you get ready for the game to make those decisions quicker and get used to the pace of the game as well.
Anybody else? That's it. All right, everybody, let's give a round of applause for Dustin. Thank you. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll have Michael Krupinski up at the front. All right, everybody, let's welcome defenseman Michael Krupinski. All right, everybody, I'll do the same thing that we did with Dustin. We'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and give a little bit of insight to your hockey background.
Michael Krupinski, was born right outside of Dallas, Texas, so pretty much grew up playing there until I was 16, and then moved away to start playing juniors, so a little bit younger than most people go, and then played 5 years, which is still unusual, and then was lucky enough to play 4 years at UMass Boston, and then Dave gave me the opportunity to come down here. So it's been awesome.
That's pretty cool. So you mentioned you grew up and started playing outside of Dallas and in the Texas area. How would you say that is probably a little bit different from other areas that you could have grown up to play hockey in?
Honestly, the big thing for me would just be like just the lack of outdoor hockey. Like I had numerous rinks within 30 minutes of my house and any which direction, and the league that we had down there for youth was, I think we had 9 teams when I was growing up, so I was playing games every weekend and playing 2-3 games a week, and then traveling for selects and playing tournaments in like Chicago, Minnesota, so I was still getting like that cold weather environment that a lot of those kids did, and then we tried to use like that opportunity to get those experiences. So I've played outdoor hockey in Minnesota, Detroit with all my friends back home, and then we were lucky enough to be at a snowstorm, so I was playing outside hockey.
That's pretty cool.
In my street.
So maybe it's not so much how different it is from other places, but surprisingly similar it is to other places.
Right. Yeah. Everyone that asks me, "Oh, do you guys even have ice down there?" You've got a lot more rinks than you think.
That's impressive. So you go from playing junior hockey in Texas, and then you go to the North American League, and you won a championship in your first season. What was that experience like?
It was awesome. The guys there were really great. They were a lot of vets on that team, and then a lot of guys that ended up playing Division I hockey. Our goalie was fantastic too, Matt Vernon, who plays in the East Coast Hockey League right now, and his dad was Mike Vernon. So we had a great coaching staff too, and it doesn't hurt when you're playing in front of 2,000 fans a game in the middle of nowhere, as we like to say up there. But I couldn't have asked for a better first year in the North American League, and then I was able to learn a lot that year, especially.
How so?
Like I was in and out of the lineup for most of the year too, so I was working with the assistant coach a lot, and he was basically like, just control what you can control and make sure you're coming to work every day getting better. It's like that's all you can really do. And so when I got the opportunity to play, I was ready for those moments, and then if I was, playing one night, scratched another night, like it wasn't the end of the world, like it happens all the time. So not getting into my head really helped, especially being a younger kid on that team.
That's good. So when you go into that level, is it like how Dustin said with the CHL? Is there a draft, or do you get to kind of choose where you go in that regard?
So there is a draft. I'm not sure how many rounds, but there is like a draft every year. And I was actually working my summer job when I got the call from Scott Langer, the coach there. They were going to draft me, and then 2 rounds later they ended up drafting my roommate from my previous team. So
that's cool.
I was pretty pumped about that, and my dad recorded both of our draft selections.
That's awesome. So then you played for a couple other teams in the North American League, and then you went to play at the NCDC level. For people who don't know about how the circuit works, how does that compare to maybe a North American League or a WHL or anything of that sort?
It's definitely a step below the WHL, or maybe even a couple. But as regards to the North American League, I would say the only real difference is just like the physicality and the professionalism side. The North American League is more professional from like a fan standpoint and organization, but the talent level, I would say, is pretty much the same.
Pretty comparable.
Because like I played right after COVID too, and my team at ISC had, I think, 16 Division I commits, which was more than any team in the NCDC, pretty much comparable to every team in the North American or more than North American teams.
That's good. So you mentioned the physicality. Was it more physical in the NCDC, or was it more physical in the North American League?
More physical in the North American League for sure.
So 2 years at the NCDC level. After that, UMass Boston, where you mentioned you just came from. What would you say that experience was like playing at UMass?
It was great. Pete Bilal has a great program up there. I loved it. I actually toured during COVID when I couldn't even get inside the rink. So he was walking me around outside on campus. He was like, well, we can't take you into any buildings or the rink because of COVID. So it's going to be a quick tour today. And it was the coldest, rainiest day in November. And I was like crying because the wind was blowing right on the peninsula. And I was still like, I love it here.
It says a lot. So it's obviously pretty different from Texas, I would say.
Very. It was super cold, and it is windy. Windy right on the peninsula.
So then, what would you say that your time at UMass Boston did for you to get you ready for where you are now?
It was more of just like the regiment style, and it was preparing you for a lot of different things. Like you have to stay on top of your schoolwork, and then you also have to make sure you're ready and eating right to perform well. So you're working out, you're practicing every day, and then on top of that, you have schoolwork too, where you're taking 4 or 5 classes and trying to make sure you get a degree still.
So that's that's kind of the the typical student athlete experience. What would you say were your favorite moments at UMass Boston?
I was lucky enough. We host a tournament every year called the Codfish, which is, fun fact, it's the second oldest college hockey trophy next to the Beanpot. So I was able to win that twice, and then our hated rivals, Norwich University, my coach hadn't beat them in 8 years, and we actually ended up beating them on alumni night my junior year. So that was all the alumni came in the room after, and it was great. Everyone was pumped about it.
Oh, that's sweet. So you finish up at UMass Boston. What's the process like? You're the first person, or the freshest person that we've had on the show this season to be able to talk about their experience transitioning from school to professional level. What was that like for you over the last month or so?
Like Dusty said, the speed of the game is different. Guys are making plays, and you can trust your teammates a little bit more to make the right play. And then a big thing is like the physicality and like the fighting, for example. Like you're wearing full face shields in college, and you can get away with a lot more here than you could in college. Like, so any of the behind the net scrums or after the whistle stuff, it's an immediate penalty in college. Now here it's like
you can get away with pretty much anything.
Yeah.
It's obviously a big difference. What was it like getting the call when you were at school? What were you doing at the time when you got the call from Dave?
Dave called me, and I think I missed the first one actually by like a few minutes, or it was going to voicemail, and I picked it up right away. We were actually at a team event doing candlepin bowling, and I remember I'm like, I run outside. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he was like, we want you to come here after the season, and I was just pumped.
So you got the call before your season was even over?
Yeah, this was like mid-January, I want to say. Mm-hmm. So I was pumped to have something like that and a team interested, and I was like I'm going to Macon after the year. Just
no doubt in your mind about it.
Yeah, it was nice to know I had something, especially being a senior too. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my teammates didn't have anything at that point, so I was feeling even better about it.
That was going to be my next question: is were there teammates that you had that were going through the same thing at that time?
We had a couple. So there's 2 more that ended up playing for, one plays for Knoxville, one plays for Quad City. So, but neither one of them had anything sort of lined up or interest at that point. So it was great to actually have something like set in stone a little bit.
That's pretty cool. So what was it like? You came here on a tryout. What was that experience like, not knowing, you've got 5 games out in front of you, and you got to make your mark in that set, and then beyond that is beyond that?
It was a little nervous, a little worrisome. My dad said, he's like, don't put your clothes in the dresser, so you don't know how long you're going to be there. But no, I was like, I had 5 games, and it was in a nice area where we had I had the 1 game against Fayetteville, mm-hmm. and then a whole week, 1 game against Knoxville, and then another 2 weeks.
It was a much longer 5 games than most people normally get.
So I think it actually helped me, and the guys were helping you kind of get adjusted, and I had a lot longer to get that adjustment than some guys do, where he'd be here for 2 weeks, and then they may not have been well adjusted, where I had almost a month. Mm-hmm. And
a lot of practice time in there too as well.
Right. So I was able to more reps, and I mean, once I got a little bit more familiar with the guys and the systems and being on the ice, I think I started to get more confident, and I mean, still here.
That's awesome. So you mentioned the guys helping with the adjustments. How have they helped your process being here so far? The guys in the locker room and even outside of the hockey environment here.
It's more of just me asking questions about like what's kind of routine for some of the guys. Like some guys like to work out more than usual during the season, and then like working out after. Or the big thing coming from college to here is recovery stuff, and just knowing what guys do, whether they're doing Normatex, they're rolling out, stretching as much. Like I didn't really see that a whole lot in college, where guys kind of get done at the rink and they just go home, relax, and that's kind of it. Here, guys really take care of their bodies, and that's a learning curve too, because now I'm starting to all right, I actually have to do this, and it's like I can feel a difference now too.
That's big. So in our act, here you've been super talkative tonight. Obviously, you seem like a talkative guy. Does that transition to on the bench and on the ice, or are you more reserved? Having less than 10 games under your belt at this point.
Oh man, I don't even know. I try to be a little vocal and try to bring the guys up a little bit on a good play or a big hit, or I don't even think I've seen a fight in person yet. So haven't been able to get up for that yet, but I try to be pretty vocal, and our coaches are always getting on us about communication, so I'm trying to be as vocal as I can and help make the guys make good plays and make the right reads so we can win some games.
That's big. So what things are you most looking forward to in your career down the road, having just gotten started with the pro tenure here?
I gotta say winning. It's being at UMass Boston. It was great, but we didn't do a whole lot of winning, especially playoff wise. So I think I want to turn the corner in my pro career and win a little bit more than I did in college.
It's going to be a popular answer for sure. From scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your experience in the pros so far? I know it's early, but
honestly, I gotta go 10. I've loved it. We're spoiled. I get just from little things like tape. I wasn't getting tape or wax or anything or laces at UMass. I was having to go to Pure Hockey and buy all my own stuff. But here we're getting all of that. So I mean, I've got everything I need, and I'm loving it.
That's pretty cool. We'll open the floor now to questions. If anybody has anything for Michael, got one on the side.
So growing up in Texas, obviously there's a lot of football and baseball. Mm-hmm. Why hockey?
So the question was, why hockey when you grow up in Texas and there's football and baseball all over the place?
So I did play football for 1 year. I was a lineman, and I played up with kids older than me, and I absolutely hated it. Being a lineman was not fun. I did play baseball for 4 years growing up, though. And then once I got to high school, my dad was like, all right, you need to pick one. So hockey, because I was a little bit better. But my dad was a huge hockey fan, and he moved to Dallas in 97, or right before the Stars moved there. And once they won the Cup, I was born the year after. And I think he was watching the game, or I think my aunt was babysitting me, and I was crying, but then she turned me towards the game, and I would stop, and then she turned me back, started crying. So it was and she was like, you need to get him into hockey, and here I am now.
Anything else? Anything else for Michael? We got a couple.
I have a question. So you said you played outdoor hockey. Mm-hmm. Did it ever snow so bad they gave you a ball?
I didn't hear the last part.
Did it snow so bad they actually gave you a ball?
A ball?
You use a ball. So we came from Wyoming.
I've never heard of using a ball.
There's so much snow they had to play with a ball.
No, in Texas we've never gotten that much snow.
I can't say I've heard of that one either. Talking about so much snow that you have to use a ball instead of a puck.
No, we've never had to use a ball, except there was one time where it did get so cold where the roads froze over, so I was stuck at my friend's house for about 5 days, and him and his family all played hockey, so we were out on his street playing ice hockey with pucks and everything, and I'm like, so I got the whole experience too, and being even in Texas.
You had one in the back?
So you mentioned that anything after the whistle is an automatic penalty. get into it. You were chirping some guys this weekend. Is that a freeing feeling? Are you excited to like get in there and like mix it up? Where you feel like you can do all this kind of stuff after the whistle where you couldn't before?
Talking about how you feel about the ability to do more after the whistle.
Absolutely, because I'm a bigger guy, especially on the team, and being in college, like that it takes away part of my game to where, if I let a guy know, like, you're not going to touch our goalie, or if I lay a big hit and someone tries to come at me and I'm giving it right back, it's going to open up that game even more for me as well. So it was definitely a learning adjustment. The first few games, Coach Phil was always like, "Hey, it's not college. You can rough it up a little bit after the whistles or in front of the net. Like, you can get away with some stuff here." So I think it's just another aspect of my game that I can bring forth now.
Anybody else got anything for Michael?
So do you want to be the enforcer now?
You the enforcer now, he says?
I don't know about that one. I'll let it come, but I'm not going to go out really, looking for it. But if it comes, I'm ready.
Got one.
Just for fun, what's the best chirp you've ever heard that you can repeat in a public setting?
What's the best chirp you've heard that's safe for work, he says?
Safe for work, that's going to cut out a lot of them.
Or paraphrase to be safe for work.
I got to say probably the best one, or one of the best ones, I'll give two. You'll be yelling at a guy and you'll call him irrelevant. and then the other one is just, does your coach or does your mom know you're out here? So those are. I heard that one the first time and I was all right. That's kind of funny.
Anybody else? No? All right, let's give a round of applause for Michael. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, thank you.
We'll take a quick break and then Dave will be up at the front. All right, everybody, we're back with Coach Pszenyczny. Let's give a round of applause for Dave. So, coming towards the end of the season, the longest home stretch of the season is in the rearview window at this point. Aside from the results, how do you feel about the way that the team played over that 5-game stretch?
There's some positives, I guess you could take out of it. We finally got the monkey off our back when it came to the power play. I still think our penalty kill is pretty strong. If a team's going to shoot the puck and it goes off two of our guys and goes in the back of the net, I mean, there's really not much that you have to change in the aspect, maybe just shift over a foot here and there, but split-second decisions that are made, and there's going to be mistakes. It's hockey, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So, talking about that stretch, 4 teams coming to town in 5 games, was that more difficult than a typical 2-weekend home stretch where you have 1 or maybe 2 teams coming in, and instead you've got a game plan for 4 different opponents, or did it not have an impact at all?
I think it had an impact on how much video I got to watch. Typically I go back 3 games per each team and dive in. Then depending if they're at home or away, really changes which games I'm going to pick to choose from. For instance, Knoxville plays in a different arena, right? It's smaller, more condensed.
Different dimensions.
Yes, so I definitely want to watch them when they're on the road. But then once again, they could be different on the road than they are at home. So then, there's variables there. Birmingham, same thing, smaller dimensions there, right? Everything happens a little bit quicker. So, it's just more time, and sometimes when you're cutting film, it's like, wait, who am I supposed to be cutting now, right? And sometimes you get fortunate where the same 2 teams that you're going to be playing are playing against each other the weekend previously, so it's a little bit fresher that you get to see them.
That happened with Knoxville and Roanoke, correct?
Yes. So, but there again, with the dimensions of an arena, right? And I feel most teams play differently on the road than they do at home, and I think that's just natural. And I feel like we kind of fall into that category too, where our better performances have been at home and not on the road. But yeah, I mean, as far as game plan was mostly focused on us, right? On what we're going to do. You try not to throw too much on them and overwhelm them, because that could get taxing, right? Because now they're almost thinking too much. And at the end of the day, it's we're worried about what we're putting forth out there as far as our system. And for lack of a better, we just didn't perform well over those 5 games where I felt that was going to be our strongest point, leading up to the end of the year.
So you mentioned the power play and the penalty kill. Obviously, special teams have been, especially the penalty kill, have been good over the last couple of stretches. What other things can you take away as positives from this stretch, especially with a lot of new or younger guys in the lineup?
I felt the last game here at home against Knoxville, clawing back towards the end. I think it's natural and human nature to just kind of throw the towel in, but we kept going.
Same thing against Birmingham as well.
Correct. And, and Birmingham's a very good team as well. Been around for a while with their chemistry, and, they could change tactics pretty quick, so it's hard as a coach to implement that right on the fly, right? When you don't have that chemistry built, right? We have, anywhere north of 13 rookies on the team, right? So
something around there.
So yeah, I mean, you put them in an area to succeed, right? And they're getting their game reps and getting familiar with the game. Krupy was talking about it, and even Pears was talking about it, right? It's different play, and the blueprint's there for them. And at the end of the day, it's the individual that has to make the split-second decision on what they're reading and picking up, and where they should be on the ice.
So, as a whole, the team has been less active on the waiver wire as of late, and with signings as well. Is there a particular reason for that?
How do I word this? Because the answer is not always easy. Sometimes you find out some information of a player that's on waivers, and they're on there for a reason. Sometimes guys kind of come in and fill in for a game or two, and they go on waivers. So it's essentially a wasted time, right, to wait till the next day to see if you even got the claim in. We put a claim in on a player, I think, last week or the week before, and we just didn't get him, right, because of where we were at on the waiver wire. So that's always another factor, right, that the outside people don't see. So you have 1 through 10, and wherever you're at, if you get a claim spot, you end up going to the bottom after each one, all right? And then as that goes on, you might get back up to 1. So yeah, sometimes you lose out on players, but I was actually just going through the transactions. There haven't been as many players waived in the past week or so compared to previous weeks. I'd probably say the 2 weeks prior to that, there was quite a bit. And you can only put in 1 waiver claim on 1 person. So if there's 4 out there, you're trying to get the best one that that is going to come and report and play, and then you're trying to do recon, and we're not allowed to speak to the other player, right? I could talk to the coach that recently was there, but there's certain rules that we just don't cross. So at least I don't.
So how would you describe the team's position at this point? The backs are obviously to the wall, but there's still a little glimpse of hope in there. How would you sum everything up at this point with 4 games left?
I think it's crazy that we're still able to have an opportunity to get into the playoffs. We've been talking for 14 games, what we needed to do, and we just haven't been able to find success or have success consistently. If you look at some other teams that were down at the bottom, all of a sudden they're ripping off 6 games in a row, and now they're not worried down the stretch. And I always tell new players that come into this league, like, every weekend's important, right? Like, it goes back to the cliche of not taking a shift off. It's the same thing as a game, because a game back in November could really affect where you're at in the standings, which could affect your playoff position at that point and who you match up against. But yeah, I mean, we just have to worry about ourselves, and control the things that we can control, and there's a lot of things that are out of our control.
So how would you, you just mentioned it, the playoff race is getting super tight. It's, like I said, 4 games left. How important is it to keep guys locked in, but at the same time keep the vibes and the energy high around the team?
Yeah, I think that's always difficult through a course of a season. You find yourself as a coach and coaching staff maybe being repetitive. Sometimes you go to the well to figure out what worked, what didn't work. I'm a big believer in taking notes, so whatever I say in between periods, I jot that down so then I can go back to later and be like, okay, well, when I'm watching film now, is it something that was said in between periods that pushed them, or is it maybe everybody's gripping the stick too tight and you break a joke and kind of loosen up the tension? But I kind of learned that through just reading books. Actually, I think it was Hitchcock that, was the one that threw that out there when I was watching him on a seminar, and, it kind of stuck with me. And, it is difficult. The weather, I guess, here has been warmer for the most part recently, but in typical hockey areas, it's the sun comes out more often and it's a little bit warmer and guys get the itch. But at the end of the day, it's pro hockey. You should want to compete individually. But I think at the end of the day, it is truly hard to motivate the unmotivated, if that makes sense.
That does make sense for sure. How much of that have you taken upon yourself in terms of keeping the energy high versus, you've got the guys in the locker room for a reason. That's more of their, it's their space. Let them handle it.
Yeah, I've said since day one that's their room. We're not going to micromanage it. That's their locker room. We go in there and, if we have to change up certain things in game with tactics, we will. But, at the end of the day, it's about them as a whole getting themselves motivated, getting ready for puck drop. And at the same time, I feel, as a coach, you want to do more, but then it's like, how much more do you need to do, right? And it kind of goes back to the same thing I just said. It's I'm not the one going out there playing, and I could rah all I want, and so can Phil and so can Taylor. But at the end of the day, it's got to be from within the group.
You're talking about your interactions with the players. How much of how you handle that comes from how you would want to be handled from when you were a player not that long ago?
Things have been quite different in times. We're dealing with a generation that's so connected to a bunch of people, but isolated because they're on their phone, right? So they're able to communicate with everybody and anybody, but at the same time they're just sitting in their room and they're on their phone. So it's not how when me and Phil and Taylor to an extent, to go meet people, you'd have to go to a bar, you'd have to go to a restaurant. People can find dates on a phone, right? So it's a little bit different, and sometimes you kind of start seeing that seep into a team, going back to communication, right? Like, if you're playing out there and it's silent, it's very hard to play. You're relying on, obviously keeping your head up is very important in our sport, but also too, it's having eyes in the back of your head, right? If somebody's talking and you're familiar with their voice or they're using your nickname, it's easier to make a play than if everybody just has their mouth taped shut, and sometimes I feel that's what we get, and it's like, okay guys, like I know you're going in as F1, but just say, hey, I'm going, so that way the people behind can now go where they need to go. And if you want the puck, I was always taught at a young age, you call for it.
So obviously coming down the stretch, winning is super important, but outside of just the winning aspect of things, what are the most important things for you as a coach to see the team attain in these last couple of games?
So as a whole, I would like to just see our team compete with pride every shift, regardless of what's on the line at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, there's 2 points on the line. We're going to Roanoke. It's a very tough barn. The idea there is to, get their fans out of it early and quick. When I've gone in there with teams and we've had success in that arena, it's because we eliminate the fans quite early. Because as soon as they get going, their team feeds off of it, and it's hard to control, right? We talk about momentum in our locker room a lot, and that's one thing that I feel that fans can provide. And Taylor would be the first one to admit that, being behind that bench and being a former player, those fans are pretty ruthless. So you kind of have to tune them out at times. And you go into other tough buildings too, like in Knoxville, I remember, and it hasn't been recent, but so we're the first row in Knoxville is it's right above, right? And this guy used to have this huge cowbell, and as soon as the media timeout comes out, right, that's the time to talk to your players, collectively. And I mean, he's ringing it, so like you're not even, you could scream and the person 2 feet away can't hear you. But at the end of the day, it's playing for pride, at this point, and even for jobs for next season. And I told the guys the other day, like, what's unique about our sport is that your game, like your film, that's your resume. So it's not, oh, hey, I'm Dave and I'm applying for this 9-to-5 job. It's I could click on this video, I could click on this, right? And it kind of tells a story and tells how you are as a person. And I feel that as a player, when odds are faced against you, you kind of see who the real hockey players are.
It's big. So since we last spoke, the team has made 2 additions since last coach's show. John Kelgen coming in up front, and Jack Johansson just signed on the defensive side. What did you see out of both of those guys that made you decide to bring them here, and what have you seen from them in game action?
So Veggie, kind of had a rough start to the beginning of the season, and I think sometimes if you're into the details of things, you kind of start, you give a guy an opportunity, right? So I had a pretty big injury at the beginning of the season, started off in the coast, ended up in Peoria, was basically there trying to get back to health, right? And I think it's just a number situation there, right? I feel that he given a full season, I think you'll see much bigger things from him, because it seems like his season just started. You know,
He's behind the 8 ball a little bit.
in a sense, correct. So he has a good shot, has some in tight spaces. He's got good hands and around the net front. So that's something that us coaching staff saw from him, coming from Adrian University, which is a pretty reputable D3 school.
And Taylor was all over bringing him here.
And Taylor was all over that. So so there was a familiarity there too with Taylor speaking to their coach, and then Jack had some numbers in D3. Like his size, right shot defensemen are like unicorns in our sport. They seem to move up the ladder pretty quickly, and that's for a reason. So things that we were lacking throughout the season, we would like to kind of make sure that we address, as far as size, and that was something that we're really lacking over the course of the season.
It's big. So last question from me is the team still looking, you mentioned Johansson, is the team still looking for young talent to bring in, or is there kind of a sense that this is the group that the team's going to ride it out with?
So it's tough given that we have 4 games left, right? Your PTOs are typically for 5 games, but that doesn't mean you can't use a PTO for 4 games, 1 game, however many you want. But it's unique. We're in a situation where, like we talked about earlier, there's an opportunity to still make playoffs. At the end of the day, if we can improve, yes, but now the double-edged sword comes out where you're bringing in a guy who doesn't know the system, right? And, kind of unique with Krupi's situation, right, coming in, you kind of throw him to the wolves. No practice, right? He truly doesn't really know our game plan. I sit there with X's and O's, but unless you're actually doing the reps physically, it's very difficult. I think that's what the outside doesn't see, right? They're like, oh, this guy must have been all week. No, he came in the day before, and then we suited him up the next day. That's kind of how it goes at our level. And I guess I'm trailing a little bit, but at the end of the day, I just truly want to make playoffs, right? I think that's our goal, and if there's that glimmer of making our odds a little bit better, we'll pull the trigger if need be.
For sure. All right, we'll open the floor now to questions for Dave, if anybody has them in here. Okay.
So obviously still focusing on this season, but as we get towards the end of the season and going into off season, do you already have an idea of who you want to put ahead? So who's going to be on that protected list that you are trying to bring back for next year so that you have that same.
The question was about what kind of an image of the protection list do you already have in mind?
So we still haven't chatted with all the players collectively on, are you retiring? Do you even want to come back? Right? There's always that too. There's always, hey, if you want to come back, are you going to be upset if we don't protect you, right? I think, once again, the outside doesn't understand that. And when a player does that and offers that, it's a trust on word, and you hope that they, hold themselves accountable by doing what they said, which allows you to possibly protect and bring back more, and not risk anything to free agency. So yeah, we have an idea, but like I said, at the end of the day, if we have 4 guys that are retiring to go, work in the real world, then that kind of shifts our game plan, right? So, and I've been in the situation where I've had 4 guys tell me I'm coming back, and then 2 months later, after protection list comes out, they found something better. And it's not hockey. It's just, maybe they're going to go get married and kind of settle down. So, at the end of the day, these guys still have lives, right? And, life changes pretty quick, as I'm sure you know.
Anybody else?
So attacking on that a little bit, at some point this season we had 80% rookies, improvising, being challenged. How can when you start bringing guys back, do you see that change on the ice? And what I mean by that is, when you refer to Knoxville, they can make changes really quickly, whereas you have all these new guys in the new system, and you're trying to teach them all at once, they're rookies. As you bring guys back, do you have to develop less because they're no longer rookies, they've been in for a year, you can make quick changes on the bench? How does your coaching change as
just talking about how coaching changes as players have been in the system for longer.
Yeah, so I was referring to Birmingham previously. No different than not Quad City, Peoria. So I actually had a really good conversation with Guy there in Peoria, and we were laughing because I was like, Guy, I can never catch up to my tactics countering yours because you're already countering what I'm going to do, and then that just comes with familiarity, right? And chemistry built with having guys 5, 6, 7 years, almost a decade, right? You still coach, but does it make it a little bit easier? Absolutely, right? Power play, there's more familiarity of where guys are, where their tendencies want to be. You see guys all the time, chatting, hey, I want that puck here, right? I can get the shot off quicker, whatever it may be. But as far as like building in the tactics, yes, it will make it a lot easier. But yeah, we just haven't had that luxury all season, right? Where it's, call-ups, injuries, and blame on the coaching staff too with movement, right? Like, and maybe that's why we're in the position we are now, as far as, we've tacked it down from, I think, 16 down to 13, right? Yeah, so things changed throughout the course of the season as far as like where we're projecting, right? And kind of going back to the original question, sometimes, like, let's just say, for instance, like we had no way of getting in the playoffs about a month ago. I think you see possibly different change because now you're building for the future, right? So a lot of different things. But the league allows us the availability to bring in college players on PTOs for that, because if you're already in first, second place, you kind of don't want to jumble that chemistry, but you also need to be able to recruit for next season. So how do you do that? You offer these guys the availability to come in for 5 games, show their stuff, and if they're good enough to make your playoff roster, then you keep them. Otherwise, you just tell them, hey, good luck in training camp next year.
Anybody else got anything? We have a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time. We got another one in the back.
So you built a franchise in Quad City, and you're now rebuilding the Mayhem. Do you just enjoy the challenge? I feel like there could be easier ways to get into coaching. Like, are you hard-headed? Do you just like to enjoy the challenge? How is it for your mental health doing that?
Talking about mental health, building the team in Quad, and now rebuilding here in Macon.
I think each franchise so far has had their differences. Quad City was very difficult in the sense that they've already had hockey there at much higher levels as far as the American Hockey League, right? So, you have certain expectations from those certain fans, and then maybe not as much, and then you have fans that are upset because it's not the same team name, right? And here in Macon, it's unique as well, right? In a sense, it's a rebuild, right? Brand new logo, right? New coaching staff, front office. I enjoy progress, right? Like seeing progress, and I think it's difficult, right? Kind of related is I'm not a Lions fan by any means, but they also went 0-16, and now they're Super Bowl contenders, right? So I like seeing stuff like that, and I always find that people usually root for the underdogs than the ones that are supposed to be there at the end of the day, right? So, I used to have a little bit more hair, I guess, when I started both jobs. But no, it's been a fun experience. I truly enjoy it, and I think the patience, I think, is the hardest thing, right? But yeah, and it's just going back to our lineup, right, with 16 rookies, right? And hopefully the word's out that changes have been made here in Macon, and that'll be better for recruiting for future years, right? So you're always trying to leave a place better than you found it.
Anybody else here before we get to the pre-submitted questions? All right, so we've got 3. So the first one, we asked last show what your favorite non-hockey moment from this season has been. This one says, what's been your favorite memory from coaching this season?
On the hockey side?
Yeah.
I got some selfish ones, but no, I think, was it Pears that mentioned it, Boyk's, hitting that empty netter. Shoot. I think this is funny though, but that was Birkin's first shutout. in SBHL, and it just happened to be against his former team, right? So, yeah, honestly, like there's, Raleigh's hat trick against Roanoke.
In that same game with the Boyko
with
goal.
the Boyko goal. I mean, it's those are the ones that I enjoy. On seeing other people succeed, right? Because they're the ones going out there and doing it. So I think those would probably be my top ones, right? Obviously, my first win, for this franchise was pretty cool, but yeah, I mean, that's
cool.
what I got.
All right, so we've got another one. This says, how important is continuity and maintaining a core group of players coming back for next season? That kind of plays off of the questions we had earlier.
Yeah, no, it's definitely huge, and we're going to be strategic in who we want back, and you always have a game plan, but it usually gets scrapped because they decide to go get married or
life happens.
Life happens. So we're definitely excited about the future as well, but more importantly, we're just focusing on Friday night.
That's big. Last one. This is from Mike's dad. He said, why did Macon sign a big defenseman that keeps missing the open net?
I know, and Boyko's got more goals than him. He didn't miss the empty net. So, I think that's great that, parents can come in and chum it up and, at the end of the day have a little laugh. But, I see a bright future for Mike at the pro for however long he wants to play this game. It's truly nice to see. And that's the other thing too. Not to knock Mike, but sometimes you look at stats, right, and they could be misleading, right? And we as a coaching staff felt that Mike's a pro player, right? Maybe not so much a college player, if that makes sense, and he kind of hit on it, with the I couldn't really open up my game in college because now I'm going to take a penalty, whereas here, I'm sorry to say the intimidation factor still is here in our game, and you could create space for your higher end players or even for yourself at the end of the day. So, no, that was a good question. No, I enjoy those ones.
That was the last one we had for tonight. Last chance for anybody here in-house. All right, well, that'll do it. Thank you guys for coming out. We've greatly appreciated doing all of our coaches' shows this season at Fatty's, and this was our last show of the season, so thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you next weekend back at home to wrap up the regular season.